In today's video, we're going to be discussing the men's hockey Olympic rosters for Team USA, which has already been announced, and we're going to take a look at who's most likely going to be on the roster for Team Canada. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. On this channel, we review and discuss all 31 NHL teams as well as international tournaments. So if you love hockey, consider hitting that subscribe button now so you don't miss anything. So let's take a look at the rosters for the US Olympic hockey team, and then we're going to take a look at Canada as well. Now, Canada's roster is not official yet, so this is just the players that I think are going to be on the roster based on what we've seen and heard through the last couple of tournaments. They are speculated to be looking at some of the junior guys, as well as the team from the Spengler Cup, and then there was another tournament before that where a lot of guys, it was basically like an Olympic tryout is the way they were looking at it. So let's take a look here. Now the US has a good mix of a few younger players that are in college that you would recognize probably from past World Junior tournaments, as well as some former NHL players or players on AHL only contracts. So let's take a look here. In goal, they have Ryan Sapolsky, who's currently playing in the KHL. That's the only goalie that they've named. They have 2 goalie spots open, and it's been speculated, and I think it's likely, that at least one goalie from the junior team will most likely end up on the Olympic team. And the most likely choice would be Joseph Wall, who's a Maple Leaf prospect. He was the main goaltender for Team USA through the World Junior Tournament, and he played pretty well. So I think there's a pretty good chance he gets selected to this team and added as a late addition. The other possibility, the other goalie from Team USA junior team was Jake Ottinger. I think there's a possibility they add him as a third. I'm not really sure what other options they're looking at outside of those 2 guys, so there's a decent chance that both go. Now, if you take a look through this other list of roster players, a lot of these you'll recognize, like I said, either from the World Juniors or former NHL guys. For example, on defense, they've got some veterans, defenseman Matt Gilroy and James Wisniewski. Those should be names, if you've been following the NHL long enough, that you'd recognize. Both are playing overseas. Now, a lot of these former NHLers are playing in Europe or the KHL. I mean, Wisniewski is probably the more well-known of the 2, but Matt Gilroy had a decent, fairly short-lived but decent career between. He played with the Rangers. I think he played in Tampa and had a short stint with the Ottawa Senators as well. Wisniewski bounced around as well, but they're both fairly well-known, regarded defensemen. Some other names you'll recognize: Troy Terry, who's currently in college. He was a huge player for the U.S. World Junior team that won gold last year. He was their version of TJ Oshie, where he was a bit of a shootout specialist, and he scored multiple times in the shootout against Canada to win gold. So he's certainly used to the big stage and scoring some big goals. So Troy Terry will be on Team USA. Another former World Junior player is Jordan Greenway, who was at BU, Minnesota Wild draft choice, 2nd round pick from a year ago. Jordan Greenway, he's a fairly big guy. He's expected to make the NHL. I think there's a good chance. Like, he's played well leading up into. He played well at the World Juniors last year, having a pretty decent season at Boston University. So Jordan Greenway is on Team USA for the Olympics. Tim Slater, former NHL player. The captain's going to be Brian Gionta. Obviously, Brian Gionta did not obtain an NHL contract this year. I don't believe Gionta actually has a club team anywhere that he's playing for. I believe he stayed in the U.S. and he's been working out and doing what he can to stay in shape. I'm not really sure. I don't think he's assigned to a specific team, but he's going to be the captain for the Americans here at the Olympics. So that's good on Brian Gionta. He's had a pretty good long career in the NHL. You know, he played for the Devils, played for the Habs, played for the Sabres. He's been a captain in the NHL, so he's probably a good choice for that role. Bobby Butler. I'm not sure if anybody out there really is going to know Bobby Butler. If you're an Ottawa Senators fan, you'll probably remember Bobby. He played briefly as an experiment with Jason Spezza. Butler did have limited experience. He's spent a lot of his time since he's left Ottawa. He did, I believe, went to New Jersey, had limited action of games there. Has been mostly played overseas for a while, and I believe right now he's currently playing in the American Hockey League on an AHL contract, which makes him eligible. Chris Bork, son of Ray Bork, is playing in the AHL right now. He's going to be on Team USA. Another 2nd-generation star, Ryan Donato, who's a Bruins prospect and is looking like a really good prospect. Donato's the son of former Bruin player Ted Donato. So if you follow the Bruins or you've been following the NHL long enough, you'll remember that name of Ted Donato. So his son Ryan is on Team USA. Mark Arcobello, who's recently hasn't been out of the NHL all that long, also named to Team USA. So there should be lots of names there that you recognize. So it looks like without the NHL participating here, it's kind of a mishmash of players from different places between AHL, overseas, whatnot, and U.S. college hockey. So I think overall, based on what I've seen in other countries, I think they'll be relatively competitive. Now, Team Canada, like I said, this is just strictly speculation on my part, but I think logically, if you look at the rosters they've carried through the Spengler Cup and other tournaments prior to that, and then the World Junior team, I think we can kind of probably be reasonably accurate here on who makes Team Canada. They've had a variety of goaltenders trying out. We've seen Kevin Poulin, Justin Peters, Ben Scrivens, Barry Brust, and there's been some speculation that Carter Hart from the World Junior team may have a shot as well. Now, the Canadian Hockey League has pledged their full cooperation to allow players to participate in the Olympics. I do believe that their club teams that they play for do have a bit of a say in if they go or not, obviously, because they have to be released in order to go to the Olympics. But we've been led to believe that teams are being as cooperative as possible to make this happen. I don't think there's going to be too many World Junior players from Team Canada's gold medal winning team on the Olympic team, but there is more than likely going to be a few. Hart, I think, is questionable. Not that he's not good enough and deserves it, but they do have a fair bit of selection here from experienced guys. Justin Peters, Ben Scrivens, Kevin Poulin. Not the most famous goalies in the world, but considering all things and what this tournament's going to be like, it's not terrible if you look at other countries. On defense, there's some likely players. There's like Kevin Klein, Carlo Koliakovo, Cam Barker, Maxime Nereau, Jeff Schultz. They all have some NHL experience. There was speculated that Victor Mete, Montreal Canadian prospect, would be sent back to junior and thus allowed to go to this tournament, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. All the indications that I've seen, it looks like Mete's been recalled by Montreal and that he will actually report to the Habs later this week instead of going back to junior. That very much, I find it as a surprise. No slight on Mente. He's going to be a tremendous defenseman. He performed outstanding for Team Canada. So I thought it would have been a good move to let him go play, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Another Canadian defenseman from the World Juniors that's highly speculated to make this team is Cale Makar. Cale Makar is a Colorado Avalanche draft choice. I think there's a pretty good chance Makar goes. As far as forwards goes, I think they might be looking at a few, but the one to me that's the most likely is the top center from the World Junior team, Sam Steele, who plays for the Regina Pats. The one advantage that Steele might have to get on this team is I think his club team, the Regina Pats, are going to be more likely to let him go as they're hosting the Memorial Cup this year, and they do have a pretty solid team. So they know that their season is not going to be lost from losing him for an extended time. They already lost him to the World Junior team. Obviously, some of these teams might be, not real pleased about losing their players for an additional time for the Olympics. But Regina doesn't have to worry about their season being a waste, where they do have a spot in that tournament for the Memorial Cup since they're hosting. So I think Sam Steele is a pretty decent shot. If you look at the other forwards, a lot of these guys you'll recognize from former NHL glory. Some of them didn't have a whole lot of glory, but been playing in Europe. P.A. Parento, Jamie Clement, Mason Raymond. I mean, Mason Raymond's a fast skater, at least he used to be. Parento has a scoring touch, so I'm not sure if these guys have... I haven't obviously been able to see many of them play since they've been playing mostly in Europe, but they have performed well in the Spengler Cup and other tournaments that they've played for leading up to the Olympics here, so we'll see. They have some veterans like Max Lapierre and Chris Kelly to add some good face-off guys with some experience. Kelly obviously has a Stanley Cup from Boston, so that leadership might be important to them. They're also looking at Gilbert Brulé, Derek Roy. Derek Roy, I think, is probably a pretty solid choice. He's still on the younger side of the 30s and had pretty decent NHL success, so I think Derek Roy is a pretty close to being a lock. Zach Boychuk was a fairly high-touted prospect, never really panned out too well in the NHL, but he's played pretty well overseas from what I've seen. Another Maxime Talbot from former Penguin, obviously has some Stanley Cups there, and obviously Talbot I think also played with Boston, and he bounced around a little bit before he ended up going to Europe. But Talbot might be a good choice as well. Some other guys with a little bit less notoriety, more for AHL success, but limited NHL success, like Rob Klinkhammer is being looked at. Eric Odell, who really hasn't played. I don't think he has. I'm not sure if he's got any NHL games under his belt or not. He was signed by the Ottawa Senators a couple of years ago. They made it sound like he was going to get an opportunity to play in Ottawa, but he really never did, because he never really performed high enough at the AHL level. So he's been over in Europe, so he's being considered. But I think Odell's a little bit more of a long shot. So there you have it. Those are all the names that Canada's looking at. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get some comments from you. What do you think this Olympic tournament's going to look like? Do you think that it's going to be anywhere near as exciting as the past when the NHL players were there? I think obviously, even though all countries are kind of somewhat on an even playing scale, obviously the European teams may have more of an advantage if those leagues over there are letting their players go. But obviously, I think, let me know in the comments, do you think that the Olympics is going to be, not nearly as interesting without the NHL players? I think a lot of people are going to feel that way, but I'd like to see you leave a comment to confirm that. And let me know which of these guys on Team Canada do you think are going to make the team. I really hope they allow as many young guys as possible. I've only seen 3 or 4 names from the junior team that speculated, but I hope they give a lot of them the opportunity, because depending on how things go with NHL participation in the future, these guys may not get another chance. So it'd be nice to see some of them end up with that opportunity. So leave some comments down below. Who do you think from all the players I mentioned from Canada have a decent shot at making this roster, and is there anybody that you'd be excited to see going from there? So we'll do a follow-up video at the end of the week once Canada confirms its roster for the Olympics, and we can have a discussion then on what we think of what they've put together. Don't forget, Top Shelf Hockey's posting daily videos where we love to discuss all things hockey. So if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button in the middle of your screen.